Oh,
Professor.
hi, can you hear me?
I'm sorry about yes, I'm sorry about the picture. My son is doing virtual right now because we have some COVID members and
It's,
I don't know how to change the background.
well, I got to tell you, it's a very strange picture, if you know what I mean.
I love Spongebob.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's really bad. Can you get it
Yeah.
off the screen?
Yes, let me try.
Okay. Hi, Anthony.
Hello.
Let's hopefully we can get that off the screen and then we can proceed. And I'm sure Clemence and Mary will join us too. I should probably start the recording. Oh, I think it is going already. Yes. It's funny. I guess the recording just starts automatically when we come into the meeting. Hi, Mary. You with us, Mary? Can you say hello? Well, I know you're there, Mary, but I can't hear you. Maybe you could unmute your mic and just say hi.
Hello.
Hi, Mary. Good. Just want to make sure you're with us. Good to see you. And we got one more minute. We'll give Clemence a minute to join us as well. Yanira is here, but she's dealing with a screen issue. We kicked her out because we didn't like the picture on her screen. It was just a little, I don't know, maybe it's just me, my mind's in the gutter, but looked a little bit inappropriate to me.
Oh, I think it was SpongeBob.
Oh, was it SpongeBob? See, my mind is in the gutter. That proves it.
Yeah, that's from SpongeBob.
Ah, that's a child's cartoon? You're kidding me. Oh, it's amazing. Hi, Sayeda. Welcome. Hello there. Can you say hi? Hello. Good to have you. Okay. It is 7 o'clock, so let's get started. Hopefully our friends will join us soon. So I corrected your last discussion boards and your grades are up, but I don't know if it's possible to access my feedback because once again, the feedback is not registering on my side. But I didn't have much to say this time. The discussion board posts were really, really good. You guys are showing some good research, so I have no worries about that. If you haven't read it already, please read the announcement about the last few weeks, because the next big thing for you is going to be choosing a historical event for you to research and to prepare a paper. I'm asking for about a 3 to 5 page paper, no less than 3, no more than 5. And of course that's the text. That doesn't include the title page and the reference page, right? So 3 to 5 pages of text, shouldn't go over 5 pages. You don't really need to do that. And all you want to do is imitate the history that we've been doing so far in the term. You know, just there's a little box that's like a little chart for you to follow. Important people, important events, reasons for things, motivations. And the reason you want to do some good research on this is because this is the research that's going to support your final project in week 7. I still have to figure out how we're going to do this, but we're actually going to post. You're going to post your idea for a memorial or monument about your historical event. Okay, so it might be more interesting to you, and I wrote this in my announcement today, to choose something that we haven't studied. For example, Mount Rushmore. Okay, that's a goodie. You know, you get the history on Mount Rushmore. You can ask the same questions we've asked for all the other things we've looked at. You could look at another canal. You could look at the Suez Canal in Egypt. You could look at the Erie Canal. Quite a history there. You could look at the railroad, the Trans-Pacific Railroad. There's many different things you could look at if you're, like I said, you can use the stuff we've used in the course, but I think it might be more interesting if you discover something entirely new, right? And then come up with a memorial for that. So I will post, because I know students need help writing papers. So I will post what I would consider a good structure for your paper. You're free to come up with your own structure, but I'll post what I think is a good structure, and that might make it easier for some of you to follow. Also make sure that any kind of references, in-text citations, final reference page has to be university level. So that means you have to use either MLA, APA, or Turabian. I'll check again if I've posted those example papers, but I think I have. You download the one that you want to use, print it out, and use that example to help you write this paper. And that's due this Sunday, not this Sunday, but next Sunday. So you have a good 2 weeks to work on this. Right. Any questions about that project right now? You can always shoot me an email too. Everybody okay on where we're headed? Okay.
I do have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
question about the topics that we're trying to choose here. So exactly what kind of a historical event are we looking at? Because I have this one event in my, it was not one event actually. It was something in the Middle East, if you've heard about Saddam,
Mhm.
but I don't know if the environmental effect that event posted or whatever he did during his rule. So will that be counted?
Yes, absolutely. I think, in fact, most of us in the West remember the newsreel footage of them pulling down statues of Saddam Hussein. I mean, it was striking for us watching these statues come down. So I think that was a perfectly legitimate historical thing to look at. If you want to look at his regime, look at some history about him, and then you'll be in a very good position to ask the question, should there be memorials to him? Was it right to tear these memorials down, or was that just the United States trying to show it, flex its power muscle? I think that's a very legitimate area. I would accept that. I would be very interested in reading your paper and seeing what you come up with for memorials.
Yeah, even I'm super interested to
Okay.
honestly go ahead and research about it. I don't know a lot about it, but I really want to research.
That sounds good. Now, remember, you can't write a book, okay? No more than 5 pages. So, you sound to me like one of those eager beavers who's going to do a lot of research when probably you don't need to kill
No,
yourself.
don't worry about it.
Okay, okay, good.
No.
Keep it brief. Yes,
Is
absolutely.
that the 5 pages including the whole empty title page? Or just 5 pages of
Well,
content?
it's 5 pages of text. So in addition to the 5 pages, you have a title page and a reference page.
A reference page.
Yes,
Okay.
so 3 to 5
Understood.
refers to the text. Yes. Well, I'm excited about
Okay.
that. Kudos for coming up with a really great area of research there. Excellent.
I hope I can make it work.
Yes, I'm sure you can. Anybody else got a question about the project right now? Anthony, did you have a question before we cut you off?
Oh no, I was just saying I didn't.
Okay. And if you need any help finding something, I'd be happy to exchange some emails with you about that too. If worse comes to worse, take the gold rush, take the Panama Canal, do the Holocaust. You can use what we used in the course. Okay, so not to worry. Good. Well, if there are no further questions, I have been looking forward all week to hearing you guys talk about the Klondike Gold Rush. So let's start simple. In your research, in watching the video, what did you find interesting? Just tell me how this story hit you. Anybody can go.
What I found interesting about this whole Klondike Gold Rush was I guess all of the people who were determined to get rich real quick, no matter what it took. I mean, some people, it took them 3 months to get to the location. Some it took longer, and of course we all know that a lot of people lost their lives. But it's just interesting to me because it's like in today, all the vegetation there is now, it's like nothing was ever there.
Wow. Wow,
Like
that's
nothing was there.
that's amazing, isn't it? So, Mary, you strike me as a very thoughtful person. What can we learn from that? Did I lose you? Have I lost you guys? Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. My computer did something weird.
Mine is too on this end. Mary, I was asking, what can we learn from that story? Because I think your conclusion is an amazing one. Is there anything there we can learn from that?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe don't be so. I don't know.
I think you're on to it. Keep going with that thought. You were going
Yeah.
somewhere with that.
I'm just like, wait a minute. Maybe don't be so quick to jump on something just because it seems good.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Um,
Well, this
I don't
course
know.
is,
I'm blank right now.
we're doing a lot of history in this course, but clearly this is an ethics course. At its heart, we've been asking a lot of ethical questions. So let's blow this up really big. Human beings tend to lose sight of what's really important when they're promised, like as you pointed out, quick wealth, get rich quick. And so the human being tends to lose sight of what's really essential. But if you look at the history, you learn that kind of choice, that kind of pursuit, it really comes up with nothing. It's full of passion in the moment. It's full of desire. It's full of energy in the moment. But because it's not grounded on anything real, in the end, like I love what you said, there's nothing left there to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 2 years, it was like 2 years, it was over. Yeah,
That's crazy.
it is crazy. And I think it's a good reflection for us about what are we living for? Are we living just to get rich? Are we living, it's very important that we aim at a better life. You guys are probably in school so that you can get these degrees, so you can make some better money, so you can look forward to a better life. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think we all know that person who works all the time, has no family time, has no social life, is so, in a sense, pig-headed about their pursuit of wealth, that all the best things in life are passing them by, and they're going to end up, there's a lesson there. Okay, let me hear from somebody else. What struck anybody else about this? You can talk about your favorite person that you researched.
I found something really interesting.
Okay, go ahead.
Apart from the gold rush and apart from everyone trying to get the gold, what I really, really found interesting was the other people who were not interested in gold, but they still made so much money. Like everyone who had their own businesses, their hotels or whatever, the women especially, many of us have written in the discussion boards about the women. They're smart enough to understand that if achieving that much of gold would have been easy, then everyone would have received it by now.
Yeah.
But then they created their own business plans. They worked around those people, even in that harsh climate. But they didn't lose their life. They did not lose as much as the people who were hungry for gold did. They did come back with actual proper hard-earned money. So yeah, of course, easy money is never easy. Whoever is trying to go for money that's like just right there, there's so many hurdles in the way that you never think of. But the people who know how to make money, they will make advantage of any situation whatsoever.
Excellent observation. Oh gosh. Do you think we can learn a lesson from these people? Like if you had to put it into words,
Yeah.
say what would be the lesson that we should learn from these people?
I honestly was just thinking how to analyze a whole situation. Like, just think of the pros and cons before you attempt something. Then if the cons are on the heavier side, then look of a different opportunity in which you can achieve your goals, considering the same situation. Like the woman that I have written about, she created her own little hotel or a restaurant. She did not have much. She was serving meals because she understood that probably she can't go up there. She can't mine. She did not have the, uh, the tools or the resources to go ahead and mine the food. She knew her skills. She knew
Mhm.
she could cook. She knew she could receive and welcome so many people, and she understood that there is a demand for
Mhm.
food in those situations, because after a while everyone runs out of food. Nobody has that.
Mhm.
So she made advantage of it. She turned it into her advantage. She made her living out of it so much that she was able to move to Seattle after that. She did not have to live in those conditions anymore. This is
What?
what I thought. Like, no matter what the situation is, you have to look at the pros and cons. You are never going to get money or gold or anything that easily. You have to believe in your skill set. You have to know where to put it to
Mhm.
use at.
Mhm. Yeah, it's suggesting to me something else too as I'm listening to you, because I think you've got a really good handle on this. It also suggests to me that we should keep our eyes open for opportunity
Of course, yeah.
in any given situation. So, like, take right now, the United States is really going through it with COVID virus.
Hmm.
There are people in our country making money while COVID is
Yeah, just
happening.
like, yeah, there are so many people who are just making masks,
Hmm.
manufacturing masks out of the home or out of a company.
Hmm.
That's it. Even through a pandemic, they're finding ways to make money, right? So that is how you take advantage of a situation. Never
And
let anything discourage you.
that's
There's
right.
always going to be an opportunity. Yeah.
And I think it goes back to what you said about, there's going to be a need. So in any given situation, if you can identify the
Hmm.
need and you have the
Hmm.
skill set, you use that phrase, a nice phrase, a skill set to serve that need, then after that you just need courage and ambition and energy, right? So
Yes.
very nice. Yeah. Was that the woman with had the lingerie and the tubes? That
No,
woman
it
that
wasn't her.
it wasn't her because she was my
No,
favorite
no.
character.
Someone else wrote it.
Yes, but yes,
Smart. Yeah.
your lady knew people had to eat, but this other lady knew they had to buy lingerie for their girlfriends. I think that's pretty smart. Very good. Excellent. Excellent.
Yep.
Okay, somebody else tell me what struck you, what was interesting to you, or somebody that impressed you. Go ahead. Anthony, you were going to talk for a while there, and we cut you off twice. So you want to get in?
She pretty much took what I was gonna say.
Well, since we have you now, we don't want to lose you. Um, what about anything about the story that you particularly enjoyed or that you found interesting or that's going to stay with you, maybe?
It was just mostly that a lot of these people brought ideas up there with them that most people probably would have never thought of. Like my discussion post I wrote about the girl that brought the lingeries and the tube.
Yes.
No one would have thought about that. Nobody.
Nobody.
He thought about it, and that's just thinking outside the box. I wouldn't have.
And everybody wondered what the tubes were full of. So she's traveling
Mhm.
along with these tubes. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that was just extraordinary foresight on her part. Um,
Especially in that weather. You
yeah,
would never think you'd be wearing stuff like that.
yeah. But if you given them the male female dynamic, I bet that lingerie really went a long way to making some of those ladies happy.
Yeah.
So very good. Would you do it, Anthony? You're the only male amongst us, young, strong, and ambitious. Would you do it if you found out there was gold up there? Would you have headed to the Klondike?
Mm, I don't know. That's a tough decision. Probably not, because especially in an area like that, the chances of you even coming back probably
Mm,
slim.
mm. What do you think made a lot of them do it though? Because some of them were smart enough, like you, to know it was going to be really dangerous. Why do you think they did it?
Ambition,
Hmm.
chances, the idea,
Idea of what? That's a good word. What idea?
the idea of being rich.
Uh,
Anybody, I mean, if the idea of being rich is there, I mean, most
yeah,
people will take the chances for it.
yeah.
Like you see a lot of the ads on social media or something like that. Some people will click it, some people won't.
Hmm. Hmm. Are you going to buy Bitcoin, do you think?
Probably not.
Because that's kind of our gold rush right now, isn't it? Everybody's into Bitcoin, and I just read something the other day about Elon Musk drove up the value of the Bitcoin by his purchases, and it's the same mentality, right? We're going to have this thing, and it's going to make us rich quick, and we're going to sacrifice for it. We just don't have to go up into the wilds of Canada to get it. Um, Very good. Okay, how about somebody else? Clemence, Yadira, you want to jump in here? Tell us what you found interesting.
I'll jump in. From what I read, the Klondike Gold Rush was short, but it was impactful. I mean, it did help the United States some with the Depression. But I do see the power of media and advertising because Seattle hired, and I have his name written down. I believe a lot of miners were in a way lied to because they went there to expect gold and to expect prosperity, but a lot of them struggled. And then on top of that, there were a lot of scam artists as well that were involved in the Klondike Gold Rush. So it had some pros, but many cons, and it impacted the environment as well. But just to me, what I took from this was the power of advertising. The way they would advertise in gold riches come, and then they do it during a depression. Of course, many flocked, inexperienced miners, people that never even probably thought about mining. So it was good for those that did hit gold, but it's this is like gambling pretty much is what they did. They took a gamble. Yeah. And we know that's not always the right. I mean, it's not always going to be prosperity. You're not always going to hit it rich.
I'm glad you've mentioned the social media, because when we say social media at the time of the gold rush, we only mean one thing. And what was it?
Newspapers.
That's it. It's the newspapers, right? How much more so today, with what we have today, could the world be set on fire for some idea? If you coordinate all your social media today around one idea, right? Talk about the power of that. Because you've mentioned two things. You have desperate people, poor people wanting to get a better life. And then you have the lying of the media. So you put those two things together in any time period, it's going to be a setup for catastrophe, right? That's a good lesson we can learn. I think from this whole reading of the Klondike Gold Rush, that's probably a very sobering lesson for us all to learn, is that social media loves to get our attention, and so it lies to us. It stirs us up with all kinds of expectations that are unrealistic and can make us do just about anything, especially if we're desperate enough. Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
They're very intelligent. The mastermind behind this, he advertised and made sure that if the city had over 400 individuals, or the county or the town, that's where he was going to advertise. And then they had, his name was Bernard. I know his name was Bernard. I wrote it down. And then they had the scam artists like Soapy Smith. Soapy Smith is the person that I wrote about. He is a very interesting character. He grew up in wealth, but then the wealth was lost from his family. He lived in Fort Worth, Texas. And he actually got scammed himself by a person who did shield. It was called shills or shells, where they would put the walnut in. He lost almost half of his income by a person, but instead of getting mad, he actually was drawn to it. He couldn't believe that he got scammed. And I think that was very interesting, because a person usually will get, if you get scammed, you get upset, mad, angry. But he was so intrigued that he was very good at scamming a lot of individuals, not just with the telegraph station, but he also did it by selling soap, why he got his alias. But he had other scams as well. So he was very good, to the point where he was almost taking control of Skagway, and they were trying to find a way to get rid of him. He had the deputy marshal on his payroll. So he was very intelligent, but unfortunately he used it for the wrong. I could just imagine what he could have done if he could have used it for the right thing to do.
Could you explain to me, now that I can talk to you about it, I didn't fully understand what he did with the soap. How did he make money on the soap that he got his nickname, Soapy Smith?
Yeah, so what he did is he would grab bars of soap and claim that some of these bars of soap had money wrapped in them. Some of them would have $5 bills, 10, 20, up to $100 bills. So he would sell this soap wrapped in paper, and then you open it. It's almost like Willy Wonka, right? Oh! You get the price. So he was like the original Willy Wonka of the soap industry. So it was ridiculous. Back then, $5 for a bar of soap, from what I understand, estimates to about $145 now. So people were buying them in bulks. So then when they would go and they would buy the soap, the extra, the excess, he would bid it, and he would do it openly in an auction. And he would mark the soap. He knew which ones had the $100 bills or the high bills. So he also had a gang of scam artists with him when he was traveling doing these gigs. So of course his partners in crime would announce, "I won the money, I won." So people were drawn to it and thought it was a real, I guess it was gambling as well. They were wrong
Yeah.
by gambling too.
Yeah,
but
it was
they also
gambling.
understand. Yes.
Yeah.
So then he got arrested, and the person that arrested him at that time forgot his name, and he called him Soapy. Soapy
Smith.
Jefferson. So he got his
Yeah.
alias Soapy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it was a kind of lottery. You didn't know what you were going to get in your bar of soap, but you bought the bar of soap in the hope that you'd have $100 bill in there. Very smart. Very smart. Very good. Yanira, what are you going to take away as something to keep from learning about the gold rush? Is there some bit of wisdom that you think is really worth learning?
I personally will take that I need to do my own research and not depend on the media or others' reviews or ideas on certain things. For example, social media can make me buy certain things that I didn't even need, just
Mhm.
because now they even have the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to learn to depend on my own needs, my wants, but also not be drawn to social media as much or advertising, because they tend to go to certain um, race, certain age, so they're telling me what I should buy.
Yeah.
They're telling me what I should spend my money on, and I need to be careful with that, and my children as well.
Very good. And I'm sure you'll teach that to your children. Okay, Clemence, we need to hear from you. So what was interesting to you? What persons touched you?
Well, there were a couple of peoples over there that actually brought my attention, but most of the ones that were really interesting to me were the people that were smart enough to take advantage of the situation and create a business. Like that was really smart. That's what I thought. I thought, okay, like Yanira, I think that's what she mentioned in one of on her discussion board, the soapy guy. That was really smart of him, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much, I mean, okay, they actually called him like a chief or whatever, but well, I didn't think that way. For me, he was just a businessman, like the same with the lady that started selling lingerie. It's like that was really smart. Nobody's thinking about getting some soap like in the middle of nowhere. So he thought of it. Why not selling it a little, more expensive than what it's actually worth?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really smart. And then I made like I thought of it when I was thinking about the COVID-19 situation that we're all in right now.
Yeah.
When it first started, people were buying crazy things like toilet papers. People were running Walmart out of toilet paper, and we all started asking ourselves, is that one of the symptoms of the COVID? Which it wasn't, but
Yeah.
people were kind of afraid everything's going to close out, and those are the first need we're going to have. And then later on, when you run out of something like water, there were, stock of water, like some market actually were limiting, they were limiting
Mm-hmm.
like the amount of water that you can get, one person can buy. So at some point, convenience stores started selling stuff a little more expensive than they usually did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was taking advantage of the situation. You're not gonna call them like thief or whatever. No,
Yeah.
they're just business people. So that was really smart of them, and That's what I thought. You know, they were interested. I mean, they were still interested in the gold and all that. But hey, if you got something you can sell that somebody else need more than you go ahead and sell it. And I would have done the same. So yeah,
It's true.
that
But
was yeah.
But then, you know, you have all this industry that grows up around the stampeders, and as soon as the gold is gone, everything else is gone too. It's a
Everything else is gone,
remarkable
that's right.
kind of economy, you know.
Yeah.
I have a question for all of you. How would you compare this story of the gold rush and its lessons to the Panama Canal and its lessons? Can they be compared at all? If you can compare them, how can you compare them? Is it by contrast? Is it by similarity? This, on the surface, this looks very, very different. So I'm interested to know, can we compare these two things, these two events?
I think they're similar on one level that during the Panama Canal, the officials, they definitely were hungry for money, which is why they went ahead and didn't care about the environment, built the canal, and did not even care about the health of the workers or anything. They just wanted the trade. Even in this one, the gold rush care about their own health. They didn't care about their families. They didn't care about the things they left behind, the animals that they left to die. They were just going on there for money. Everybody wanted to be crazy wealthy, but they did not. I could say like they totally ignored the other situations. They did not bother about the environment in the first place. Like it is not easy letting thousands of workers of yours die while you refuse to provide them proper healthcare benefits. And it is also not a joke to leave thousands of animals, horses and stuff, just leaving them to die in the cold. You cannot bear that cold. How do you think the animal can? Not feeding them, not taking care of them. It was basically same on that level, that humans are so greedy. They totally forget about the nature, every other component of the nature, be it earth, animals, sunlight, water. They just have to exploit everything for their
So
own greed.
if I'm hearing you right, one common denominator between these two apparently very different things is greed. How greed can blind people, and yeah.
Greed, yes, but more importantly, they don't care about the environment. They just have to reach their goal. They think nature is nothing, even though nature is everything. You take care of nature, your generations will live. But you only think about you. You don't care about the earth, the environment. That's the problem.
Anybody else? I could ask a follow-up question, but anybody else have an idea? Can you compare the gold rush to the Panama Canal? Is that a good comparison?
I would say no.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I would say no because one was based off self-interests, whereas the other one wasn't. Because it was the Panama Canal was mostly government funded. Many countries tried to get involved. Klondike Gold Rush, it was mostly just individuals trying to get involved. I mean, granted, Canada tried to intervene and be like, "Hey, if you're not good enough, you can't go for it." But it was government funded or self-funded. So,
what was the purpose of the Panama Canal? I think you're really onto something there. What was the purpose of the Panama Canal?
Trade, so that way you didn't have to go all the way across.
Yes. And so we didn't talk about this, but it may be true that many people suffered in the building of the Panama Canal, and the environment was wrecked and the native peoples were dislodged. But after the canal was in place, don't you think that there was an influx of wealth in that whole area? Because now you had the ships moving back and forth. It's funny because there's no mention of the good effect of the Panama Canal in anything that we read. We only read about the negatives. But if we're interested in people getting something out of it, I mean, the Panama Canal probably enriched that whole zone. and then enriched all the peoples to whom these ships could get to, and for whom commerce became much easier. We didn't talk about that, you know. I think there's a bit, I'm just going to throw this out there, but I think there's a bit of revisionist history going on these days, where it's very popular to condemn human enterprise because of the damage to the environment or the enslavement of peoples. It's very popular to see the negatives, and we forget what was built because of those activities. So again, I'll ask the question again, see if you guys have any thoughts, maybe from somebody we haven't heard from yet. Can we compare the Klondike Gold Rush to the Panama Canal? What can we see looking at both of these things?
I agree with Anthony. I don't see how you can compare it, especially as far as with the people, because with the Panama Canal, if I'm not mistaken, of course they were lied to. A lot of them were all lied to go and work, and most of them were almost like slaves.
They were, yeah.
On the Klondike, with Klondike, they went voluntarily because they wanted money.
Okay, Mary, I'm going to pick you up on that, because they went believing they were going to find gold, but that was a lie mostly perpetrated by the newspapers, as we've been reminded tonight. So it wasn't really true. They were promised wealth if they went there to the Yukon, but it wasn't really true. As we read, most of the claims had already been made in the areas where gold really could be found. So by the time these people got there, there wasn't anything left. And also in the Panama Canal, they did go of their own free will, right? Because they were promised they'd be making.
Because they were told the same thing. Yeah, they were told that they would have shelter and food.
Right.
Now since you're saying it, I'm like, wait a minute.
In both cases, there was this motivation for wealth, but that's not necessarily the end of the story there, because why did these people pursue this wealth? Why did people go to the Yukon? Why did people go to the Panama Canal Zone? Because we've read this reason too. Why did they do it?
Hold on.
A very simple reason. Weren't they desperate?
Yeah, they were. Very
for money.
Yes. What were the conditions in the United States at the time of the gold rush?
It was under the. Of course, I said that. Of course, before I said it was the depression, but it wasn't. It was a recession.
There you go. You got it.
During that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they were really. It wasn't just that they didn't have any pocket money. They were starving. They were watching their families starve. Unemployment, did we see, was up to like 43% or something? I mean, people couldn't get jobs. Yeah. And those people who went to the Panama Canal, similar. They were in terribly impoverished conditions, and it was an opportunity to, did they keep the money themselves all the time? They saw it as an opportunity to send the money back home too, right?
Yep.
So there's a bigger picture here behind both of these stories. I think I mentioned to you guys a few weeks ago, there used to be a bumper sticker I used to see on cars everywhere. If you want peace, work for justice. If you want peace, work for justice. Because if you have economic injustice like this, any just in the background, powerful manipulators can step into the picture. Powerful forces can take advantage of the economic injustice that the people are living in. My father at the dinner table tonight was wondering why, my father's 90 years old and he's a historian. So he was sort of, talking about the ways of history tonight. And he was wondering why today there are so many demonstrations, violent demonstrations, not just in the United States, but around the world. And my father's upper middle class. He's always had a good job. He's never had to worry about money. He's always had health insurance. He's always been able to provide for his family. I, on the other hand, I have lived very poor for long stretches of time. I've had to work at minimum wage jobs. I still don't have any medical insurance. And I listen to my father, and I know that he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand what can happen to you when you're really, really poor and how you start to feel. Does that make sense to anybody? But we're comparing these two very different historical events, but there seems to be something in common between them. Any thoughts?
And there's always those that will take advantage of, like you said, their desperation and their time of need. And that's very sad because that still has not changed. And I don't think it will ever change. That those people that are just worried about greed will continue to do so. I was reading actually for another class I have this week about a person. Her name was Rita Cronwell, and she did the largest fraud in municipal county. But what she did is she was stealing from the county while the county of Dixon, Illinois, she was cutting off people's jobs. They didn't have any repairs to the streets. The city was just she was their demise. In other words, a lot of people were losing their jobs, and they couldn't. The police station didn't even have radio stations. Good radios to help the city out. Meanwhile, she stole over $53 million. So that greed will do that to people. They do not care about anyone else. It's just they're selfish, their gain, and their want. And that's very sad. And same thing with the Panama Canal. They really didn't care about their conditions. Yes, they were paying them, but they didn't, for a good time, they didn't care about their living conditions. The Klondike Gold Rush, they did this advertising knowing that a lot of people weren't miners, weren't skilled, weren't prepared for the cold, and they didn't care. And unfortunately, that's still what we're going to see from here on out.
Yeah. Wow, what a story. What a story. You know, you can almost imagine the people in the newspaper offices at the time of the gold rush. Maybe somebody said to somebody else, well, maybe we shouldn't make it out to be such a big deal because, you know, people are going to believe us and they're going to go up there and they're going to die, or they're going to end up in terrible situations, or they're going to come back more broke than they were before. I mean, did anybody have that conversation? And, you know, in the editor's office, they probably, like you say, they probably just didn't care. The only thing they wanted to do was sell newspapers, because a newspaper with a big gold in the headline was going to sell, right?
Yes. But then you always run into those people that restore your faith in humanity. Because during the Klondike Gold Rush, I'm sure there's people that saw people that were hungry and fed them or gave them some of what they had. There's always those people that restore your faith in humanity. And that's a good thing too. I mean, like we were talking about statues and memorials. That's what I mean. Yes, we should have statues or memorials, but we can't do it for just one person because there's so many people that deserve them. You know, nurses and doctors and just so many people that are heroes.
In fact,
we shouldn't idolize them.
We know that those kinds of people did go up to the Yukon just to help. They didn't go to make money. We had convents of nuns, we had ministers, we had doctors and nurses. You know, they weren't there to make money. They went up to serve that population. So I think you're right. There's always someone in the midst of the injustice who is a bright hope of light. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, when someone does that for you, you want to do that for someone else. And it's just a chain reaction. We went through a hard time as well. And there was an individual that would, on Thanksgiving, thought about us and our family and brought us food, would just bring us a box of food. Well, during this pandemic, God has really been, I mean, I've been completely so blessed. Sometimes I don't even like to say how blessed I am because I don't want to sound so, like, you know. So we saw that there were people in our community that they needed food. So we started out of our own funds making boxes of food, and we just saw like a tear in their eyes. Well, this has evolved to a full-blown food ministry that's feeding over 800 families a week.
Wow.
It's called God's Table Food Pantry. And one individual that did that for me and my husband, didn't return, and it's now feeding over 800 families a week. That's just, and I mean, the donations are flooding in. We don't even have a space big enough. And it's called God's Table Food Pantry here in Uptown Dallas, actually.
That's awesome.
It's amazing how those things can evolve.
Because, you know, in a sense, COVID is a historical event, just like all the historical events we're looking at. And so we can find the same elements now as in these other events. There is greed. There are people taking advantage of the situation, some smart and not very good people. But then there's also that, the goodness, the generosity, the charity. That's marvelous. Thank you for telling us that story, because, you know, in the middle of COVID, we need to hear those stories. That's outstanding. Here's a question, okay? It's still related to the same idea of comparing the two things. Now, the Panama Canal, when it's over, you've got the Panama Canal. You've got one of the greatest architectural and engineering achievements in the history of mankind. And Yanira pointed out to us at the beginning of the evening, I was saying, I think it was Yanira, at the end of the gold rush, there's nothing left. It was like remnants here and there, a couple of cemeteries. And then one of the main towns that used to be 20, 30,000 people, there's only 20,000, 2,000 people left. You know, there's really nothing left to show for it. What do you think of that? Can we compare these two things when there is such an obvious difference in the aftermath?
I think that was Mary, right? I think that was Mary that said that.
Mary, it was you. What do you think, Mary? Should we even try to compare these two things?
As far as that, no, because it's like now without the Panama Canal, how would we, get stuff across? Now, with the Klondike, I believe, wasn't it? It used to be a lake or a river there. Now it's like little ponds that were just nothing. But no, I don't. In that sense, no, you can't compare the two.
Physically speaking, there's nothing left in the Yukon that really is a sign of great human achievement, whereas in the Panama Canal there is. But can we go to a deeper level? How about this? Okay, so let's not look at any physical token of what took place there. But what at the spiritual level? What at the level of human beings, their ambition, their achievement? Is there anything there we can find in common other than greed? Because we've already talked about greed. I mean, we're still telling the Yukon story now. We're still telling this story. They still make movies about this story. The writer, Jack London, wrote many works based on his experiences in the gold rush. And we're still making remakes of the movies of those works. So there's no actual Panama Canal. I mean, there's no big engineering feat left over. But what could we say has stayed with us?
Like in terms of like memory, or
Go ahead, what do you think?
I don't know really how to put this, but in terms of memory, the Klondike was smaller than the California Gold Rush. To be honest, I never even heard of the Klondike Gold Rush until this class. We really only studied the California Gold Rush, and that was kind of major part of history for our classes. But we studied that in the California Gold Rush there was no mining regulations, and then when I went back to look up the Klondike Gold Rush, there was still no mining regulations. So you could literally pretty much do whatever you want. You could cheat people out of the gold or whatever. Whereas the Panama, you had a whole bunch of regulations pretty much. So, I mean, a lot of the times they ignored those regulations, but you still had them in place. And honestly, the Panama Canal was almost destroyed a couple times, or once at least. So, I mean, in terms of memory, it's kind of small.
Yeah. Interesting point. We didn't get a chance to compare with the California Gold Rush. I actually lived in Northern California for a while. You have leftover mining shafts everywhere. I was north of Sacramento, in an area called Grass Valley, and there's so much history there. The Welsh came and built the mines there. It was a Welsh community because they were the great miners in Wales back in Great Britain, and they immigrated to the States and they brought those skills here, and they had a whole culture based on their work in the mines. And you can go there today and actually go into the mines, and they have a lot of museums set up. Another great chapter in history, which exists no more because there aren't any mining interests there today. I like your idea of memory, collective memory, the human memory, the memory of the species, one could say. But what about at the level of, I don't know how to put this exactly, because on the surface we would say there's more memory to the Panama Canal. I mean, it's so huge. It's a fantastic artifact of what happened there. But isn't the human spirit the same in both stories? Maybe I'm wrong. You can disagree with me, okay? The human spirit, if looked at in both of these historical events, that's really what's at the center of these stories. It's not the ultimate artifact. It's not get wealth, get money, get gold. What makes these stories worth the telling, again, is something about the human spirit. What do you think of that?
In terms of spirit, I would say yes and no, because today you can go to the, it was a documentary. I'm not sure if you posted it, but it was a documentary I was watching, and this guy was saying that he was looking at the Panama Canal, and sometimes you just don't realize how much it actually went into making this, and how much time and dedication. He's like, you just look at the hills and the area around it, you're like, my goodness, this was pure dedication and pure willpower just to even put this thing up.
Yeah.
Klondike, you can't really go there and visually see. So, I mean, spirit, yeah, it's there, but I don't really think they can really compare them in that way too much.
So you're looking,
I see.
go ahead. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I see the beautiful about both these situations is that different people came from different walks of life that would have never came together, for one. Another one, we see resilience too. Resilience is, we're very resilient individuals. I mean, overcoming depressions, recessions, and now pandemics and previous pandemics. And we only get stronger and learn from our mistakes. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Just to be honest with you, if I lived in that time, I think I love to see how people come together from different walks of life.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that was a beautiful thing in both times, the Panama Canal and the Klondike Gold Rush.
Well, you've definitely touched on what I'm trying to get at here. If the human spirit is really at the center of both of these stories, we don't look at the outcome because there's nothing left in the Yukon, and there's this great canal in Panama. But if we look at the human spirit itself, isn't that really what's at the heart of the story? Is what is the human being? What drives the human being? What is the human being after? Maybe I could put it this way. I'll ask you all what you think of this, okay? Do you think we're going to go to Mars? What do you think? Do you think we're going to go to Mars?
I do.
Don't have
Go.
much of a
Who have I got there? Saida, did you want to say something?
No, that's okay.
Okay. Who wants? Do you think we're going to go to Mars? And what would be your evidence? I have evidence.
Well,
I have evidence we're going to go to Mars. What do you think? And you know what? My
I
evidence
think
is,
we will.
I think we will. And my evidence is not that we have the money. My evidence is not that we have Elon Musk. My evidence is none of that. My evidence is history,
My evidence,
right?
right, and my evidence would be that we can come together now and work as a group, as a whole, to accomplish something. So yeah.
Yes, exactly right, Clemence. We will come together to accomplish
If we did
ahead.
so much with so little back then, I can only imagine the possibilities now with so much technology. I mean, even if it's artificial living, I think it will make it possible.
What do you think, Mary? Come on, Mary, you're thinking. I can see you're thinking. Are we going to go to Mars?
They can go to Mars.
They can go.
Yeah, they can go. Um, I, I don't know. I don't see the purpose. I really don't see the purpose of it. I mean, yeah, maybe there's something there, but leave it alone.
Mm. Do you?
I just leave it alone.
Is this your position because of the lessons of history?
Yes. Because I don't know. I mean, of course, of course, after they went to the moon, okay, and they keep going, and are they finding new things? Possibly. I mean, but when they're in space, they're gone for months at a time.
Yeah.
It's not just it's not a quick trip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But don't we always dream it and then we do it? You know?
You're there about 6 months, if I'm not saying.
Won't we do
Oh, yeah.
it? Won't we do it because we can? I mean, when you look at the Panama Canal.
And in a way.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. And I was going to say, well, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, we do it because we can, but then you also have to think about it. Is that selfish?
Well, that's the second bunch of questions you asked, right? Hopefully we've learned something from history. Hopefully we've learned what we've done wrong and right in the past. But my initial question is, can you imagine these people looking at Panama, 50 miles of mountains, and saying, we're going to build a canal. We can do this. We got this. And then they did it. They literally cut through mountains, to build this canal. For them, that was Mars. To create a waterway between two oceans through the mountains was just almost unthinkable. And I bet there were a lot of people that said, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. Look at all the negatives that are going to come out of this. And so they pressed ahead, Like when I think of going to Mars, I think, why? I mean, what's on Mars that we would want to be there? And yet I'm absolutely sure that we're going to go to Mars, that we will go. Because of history, because of what I know about the human spirit. I think that's one of the cool things in this course is that we are looking in a very focused way at the very deepest level of human motivations. I'm sorry, somebody else wanted to say, Anthony, did you want to jump in there? Somebody was trying to say.
I want to say.
Yeah.
My bad. I was just gonna say that there's actually quite a bit on Mars that we have an advantage to get to.
Like what?
Scientific research. We can explore other planets closer to Mars, further out, because on Earth we're stranded here, and we can't see as far as we probably could from Mars, or we probably can't get as close to other planets. Eventually, if we land on Mars, we might be able to go to Pluto. We're just gotta take those smaller steps because we went from the moon. We're at the moon now. Yeah. You go from the moon to Mars. Just those small trips that we have to take.
So Anthony, you're not sure you would go to the Yukon, but your eyes are lighting up while you're talking about going to Mars.
I wouldn't go to Mars myself, mostly because there's too many. The thing is about space is there's too many unpredictable possibilities, and that's what holds us back probably from even going to Mars. Granted, we're so close to having slip space technology. Yeah. But the issue is, if we have slip space technology, we're going to destroy Mars. Because you can't physically stop that barrier without destroying Mars.
But isn't this similar to the people that went to the Yukon? I mean, they didn't know what they were doing, but they went anyways.
I think the people that would probably go to Mars would most likely be scientists. rather than actual civilians first.
Well, look at the Panama Canal, look at the Yukon. What kind of people went? Was it only one kind of person that went to these places? It was all kinds of people, wasn't it? It was adventurers, it was the curious, it was the money makers, it was the do-gooders, it was the scammers, and it was the gold seekers. This is something about the human spirit, something that's always pushing us forward with some kind of promise in the future. It's a remarkable thing. I know I'm probably in opposition to this whole course by telling you these things, because this course, as I understand, remember, this is the first time I've gone through this course too. This has all been new for me as well. And the kind of the sense I've gotten of the way it was designed was that we're supposed to be very negative about some of these things that we've looked at. And I grant there's a lot there that we need to be smart about: the environment, the indigenous peoples, you know, the damage that was done, the greed. I grant all that. But there's one thing that we, you know, we should never forget about history, is the other side of that coin, is that human achievement has led to further human achievement. It's like Anthony saying we get to Mars, and then from Mars we can go to another planet. It's like, yes, you know, there were problems, but these achievements gave rise to other achievements. I had a student in class the other day tell me, and he was so certain, and it really struck me, because I'm 59 years old, so I had a different education than my students have had. And this young student, he said to me, well, you know, Columbus was a mass murderer. And I just looked at him and was like, what? Who told you that? And his education, he has been told in school that Columbus, you know, enslaved people, he killed people. He's really, really a terrible, terrible person. And so we shouldn't have any statues up to Columbus because he did all these things. And which raises the whole question about statues that we're going to talk about intensely in our last week, right? I'm listening to my student and I'm thinking, okay, maybe he and I are two ends of the spectrum, like polar ends, because I was raised to respect Columbus for his courage and the courage of his crew, because they really didn't know when they sailed across the Atlantic if they were going to fall off the edge of the world or not. So we were raised to respect them for their courage. My young student has been educated not to see anything noble in Columbus, nothing, zip. As he said, Columbus was a mass murderer. These are two extremes in education. Anyways, my friend, it is 8 o'clock. I want to leave you with these thoughts because we're definitely going to pick them up again. Next week when we meet, it will be to help you with your projects. So come with questions about your projects. I might ask you some questions about how you're doing in your research. I'll have something prepared to give you some helps, but I want you to use me in the session to help you write your papers and to plan your projects. So consider it a kind of a workshop next week. We're going to have a workshop meeting. And then the last week, we're going to look at your memorials and talk about your designs. And I think we're going to raise this question one more time about raising memorials and monuments. Sound good? Sound okay? All right. You guys are awesome. That was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much. Have a good week. We'll see you. Take care.
Thank you. Good
All right,
night.
bye-bye.
Good night.